But you never know. You never know. We have with the way the games have gone today, it wouldn't surprise me if this game was close. I'm not going to say a win, but I'm going to say potentially close. That's my feeling here.
There's a strong potential for a map 5. Like, the original breadsticks were given out if the Vancouver Titans made it to a map 5, which they haven't managed to do so far this season. They have not released breadsticks to the populace. So if they make it to a map 5, that's only one of the components on the bingo card now. And it seems likely. I mean, today we were talking at the desk earlier on, Matt, and everyone predicted the Shock. Everyone predicted the Mayhem, and now everyone predicted the Boston Uprising. And the underdogs have had a much stronger run at it than anyone was expecting.
Yes, and I feel like for some of the games it has just been because I think it's the first week of a meta that it seems, I think you were talking about it last series, and I think we saw it a lot in the first series, where teams have just not been on the same page, at least from what it looked like thus far. We can take a look at the Vancouver Titans roster, starting roster today, but teams have not been on the same page, coordinating these dives and attacks built around Sombra. Lynx are in Dalton in terms of the DPS, Rolf and Fire as the support, and then Chungsik and FRD for the tank line. I may have a hot take here, Josh. I think. Okay, here may be a hot take. I actually think the Titans were not that bad in the June joust. They just had the most brutal schedule imaginable.
They definitely did.
Where I can't see them playing as bad again.
Yeah, also, though, they did just put in Chungsik to the team. You'll notice that there's an odd one out in this line in the bingo column, if you want to call it like that.
Who doesn't belong.
Chungsik does not have that same background as everybody else. He's not in the same environment as them because he's a new addition to the team. And that happened during the June joust, and that's one of the reasons, I think, that they struggled so much as well. Taking a look at the Boston Uprising, though, this is the regular squad. I've got my eyes, honestly, on Valentine, and I'm 37, because this is... We've seen Doomfist be played, we've seen Echo be played, we've seen a lot of Tracer, Sombra. It seems like your DPS have to be pretty versatile, and I've heard so much about talking up Valentine, but he's not really rated by IBM Watson or by anybody else for his performance so far this year. People might believe in the potential, but I don't think he's really showcased it so far in 2021.
He hasn't hit that level, I think, yet. Like, he's good, but he hasn't hit that next level where I think people expected. One thing you mentioned is, the typical roster. We actually saw them playing Gale Bolshi a lot in the June joust. They come out here with Punk in the off-tank role. Where we saw Punk in the June joust, it was really just like Sigma play. So maybe we see them opt to do some like Sigma Diva type of strategies instead of having a Gale Bolshian to do some of the Zarya Diva work. The first map in this series will be Busan.
And what are you actually running the Sigma with there? Are you trying to run a Rhine Sigma composition when it comes to Busan? I mean, Sigma Ball actually could be viable once you get to like the Sanctuary kind of map, which I believe is the name of it. The one with the big drum in the middle. That's how I remember.
Drum map,
The drum map. Yeah, the drum map. That's not insulting to the people who made Busan in the slightest. But that's where we're heading here. I cannot believe
we kick it off on drum map.
We do kick it off on drum map. Matt, I can't believe that the Vancouver Titans are 5-0 against the Boston Uprising all time.
That has to be a lie. Somebody's lying back there.
The stats people are having our lives, surely. Obviously, the Vancouver Titans franchise used to be incredible. They had the runaway organization. They had so much success over the course of 2019. So, all right, leave that aside. They did play each other in 2020 multiple times.
I mean, they did have a...
Is my memory defective? Apparently, Vancouver won every single time. I thought it was back and forth.
They may have only played once with like a change in schedule, and then we did have like a while where Shockwave was really popping off, right? Shockwave was really making an impact. So here early on, looks like Boston potentially going Winston. No, they're going to go Reinhardt with the Diva with the May McCree. And then the Titans are going to play a Sombra Reaper composition with a Moira in the mix. Two very different looks.
Very different. The Vancouver Titans want to be the aggressors. You heard it from Hisu just earlier when he was describing the two archetypes, the attackers and the defenders. I like to think of them as being one team proactive and the other reactive. Vancouver are definitely the proactive players here. Lynx Ensemble is a rarity. I think he's already hit the 3 critical hits, by the way. But if anyone's keeping track on the bingo card, he's playing Sombra, it's a cheat code.
It's got to be crits for kills. If not, I'm going to save the Titans some breadsticks. I'm gonna make the executive decision. That's what that means. It'll be the Boston Uprising getting control of the point first. And like you mentioned, we were on board with Linkser there for a bit. And he goes in, he gets some damage, and then is forced to translocate out. And I say forced, he's not really even that forced. I don't even think he takes a ton of damage, and he has a Mega there. But what we saw from Boston through the outline is they don't want to, they want to create this space. They were using the Lucio speed to disengage, get away, and now they're setting stand 1 up here, trying to bait some of these players in for Vancouver. Vancouver taking a little bit of a roundabout way here. I do get worried, Josh, that Vancouver, it takes them so long to pick a fight that they only get 1 or 2 here in this map.
Yeah, they're walking at them pretty menacingly right now. Dalton straight into the back line, gets a flash, forced to Wraith form out of there. And now I'm 37 with the dead eye. Takes out Linkser in the back, who'd only just been able to hack up Faith a little earlier on. Boston Uprising in firm control, and stand 1 smacks people to the floor. Busan belongs to Boston, at least for the beginning. This Vancouver Titans lineup, Matt, it's supposed to be the aggressor. And they're not really finding their opportunities.
The most dreadful thing about this right now is that Linkser is only 63% to EMP. Really no significant damage being put in by the Sombra, which at this point in the game, right, there's going to be 75 about plus percentage on the point by the time this next fight kicks off. You're at that to an EMP in terms of ult charge. You're in a situation where you may not get an EMP this point.
We were seeing coalescences be built in 50 seconds flat, and now Rolf is only up to his first. It has been slow, ponderous perhaps for the Vancouver Titans, but this has got to be the go button here. They've got EMP and Cole. They've got to make this one work. Stand 1 and Punk are already under so much pressure. Immortality field popped off really early on, but Rolf does not want to commit with this one. There it is, no orb used, but there's the call. Faith already falls. He had the sound barrier to reply, and Boston, they look like they already wrote this one off.
Yeah, Boston's going to hold on to ultimates. It looked like they were potentially holding on the Coalescence to maybe combo with an EMP, but they're able to just pop the call, and maybe they didn't feel confident in getting an EMP off. Now the Titans are in a position where they can start to rattle some things off in a row. I mean, that is... FRD is going to jump off the side, but that is a powerful mustache that he's got going on right now.
It is, isn't it? That would get crumbs from
captivating.
breadsticks. It would keep all the crumbs from the breadsticks, and you wouldn't
It would be
able to shake them
distracting
out.
as a teammate.
Yeah. What are you doing with your teammates where a mustache would be distracting?
Just so much hair out of your peripheral vision.
Oh, peripheries, right, peripheries.
Yes, the peripheries, yeah.
Here's an EMP. I'm 37 trying to reply with that Deadeye towards the back. He had an Amp Matrix to work with as well, but Changsik is tickling him from behind, pops the Primal as well to try and disrupt. And can we see Dalton get any kind of position onto it here? Immortality field already forced, but he's forced away. Wraith form used, and Vancouver Titans, while they're holding on, they don't have an advantage.
That is a really dangerous death blast in the pull off. Punkle launches self-destruct on this guy. Get 2? Excuse me? As that's going to be a shatter that comes in for stand 1. Needs to put his shield up. Very, very weak. But this should be a fight where Boston comes out on top. And I was going to ask you, because we're about halfway through that fight. And it looked like Vancouver was in good shape. What you thought about the Torbjorn switch. But right now, Vancouver just kind of trickling on the point, trying to keep this going in their favor. And they may have an opportunity to do so. Changsik is there on the ball. You do have fire as well. And look at this. FRT putting some pressure on I'm37 at range. He's going to get his mech back as Vancouver still has the point.
Yeah, Valentine has actually popped that Torb ultimate, gets his ult up before we have a chance to really discuss it as well. And Rolf falls to it too. He was at 89% of that Coalescence. Been building that kind of slowly, but all of this in favor of the Boston Uprising here. Faith just layering it onto the top with his sound barrier. Nice play by FRD.
Yeah.
The mustache gobbles up all of that flashbang. But still, it's Boston. They're firmly in control, Matt.
Yeah, this is Boston's point for the taking now. Dalton will go out in the hands of Valentine. It looks like we just have Rolf here getting onto the point, getting shot from the Torb turret from the side. A really close first point, though, here between Boston and Vancouver. Boston adjusts their comp about halfway through this, right, where they ditch the May and they pull out the Torb. What's been your read on this Torbjorn setup this far?
I think it's a good setup to try and push back Moira Lucio teams, for sure. We saw some use out of it in the June Joust too, right? The Torbjorn, if it's combined with a Reaper or a McCree, is very good at just adding that extra tankiness to your front line to stop the Vancouver Titans from getting these hard engages with their Winston and with the Coalescence, for example. But honestly, it's a great deterrent for the Reaper too because of the armor. But The Vancouver Titans are just too slow. I feel like that's just the core of all of this, is that they're not taking poke quickly enough and turning it into cold. They're not finding engagements quickly enough. Lynx are not building the EMP quickly enough. Pace is the name of the game right now, and Vancouver Titans, they're lacking it.
And it's often in Overwatch in history, right? The worst decision happens to be no decision, where they're just kind of standing in no man's land, really accomplishing nothing, not being proactive, not even really kind of reacting in a way to try and counter. Is they get Boston control over the side of the point. Here's Chungsik. I mean, he doesn't even really get split off with a wall. It's just like the pressure knocks him over to the side. There's no teammates within line of sight, and you lose your Rhine and you lose your Reaper, and that's pretty much it.
It is completely it. Vancouver Titans were looking for a disengage there, I feel, but Boston forced the issue. They have the advantage of using that immortality field to keep them alive across the course of that first fight, whereas Vancouver's advantage is that they build Coalesce much faster, and they didn't.
What is this combo?
They simply haven't.
Sombra
You don't like the Sombra McCree with
Diva,
Moira?
Lucio? It feels like you could make some more changes to this to have it benefit you. That's Faith getting really aggressive as Myungbong drops an Amp Matrix, but Dalton takes out the Lucio. You can wait out this Amp Matrix, then make your way to the point. And I think that may just be Boston getting a little bit too over-aggressive. I mean, Faith taking a 2v1 with a McCree off to the side. Not going to live very long, even against an opponent who hasn't won a game yet in that type of scenario.
Vancouver in control of the point, and I want to bring your attention to the breadsticks check-in. 3 Reinhardt pin elims is required for one of the squares to be crossed off. So you're looking at Chungsik here. If he can lay down some kind of big pin in the middle of this EMP, we are one step closer to being able to secure breadsticks for the masses.
EMP to counter Blizzard gets 2. That's a Deadeye. That doesn't really get much. They invested the EMP at the start of that, and they end up using their sound barrier into self-destruct during that. That is such a big investment there for Vancouver in a fight that really, they had no chance in winning. As soon as that EMP comes out, it's only 2 players they connect with, and the Deadeye is there, and they're stuck in the Blizzard. There's not really, I mean, you invest the sound barrier, maybe you think you can pull it out, but still the chances are so low at that point.
Exact same thing that happened to them on the previous round as well. As soon as Lynx used his EMP, I'm37 was there with the Deadeye. And Chungsik, the man that I was bigging up for getting those pin eliminations, frozen by a Blizzard. And now the Vancouver Titans, they're trying to push back in. Thankfully, Lynx are up to 50% of his EMP. There's a shatter. 2 people knocked to the floor. I'm37 and Myunbong, but it does not help the Vancouver Titans. It's a close, scrappy affair, but Myunbong's Amp Matrix is going to help turn the tide in favor of the Boston Uprising. And they stack up another team fight on the board. They are firmly in control of this second round as well, Matt.
Positive for Vancouver is, I guess, you're building up towards this EMP faster than you have previously. So we'll see. Lynx are potentially play around this EMP for the next fight, but yeah, Boston, they've looked really good on this point. The last one was a bit closer. Maywall here gets right up in front of Dalton. That's a hack on the stand 1. Yeah.
Very nicely played there. The speed boost with the Deadeye sets up Dalton, and a beautiful hack from Lynxer. They've been few and far between, these really important hacks from Lynxer, but that one is crucial. And now it sets them up in a position where he can use this EMP aggressively to stop the momentum of Boston as they try and push back in.
They can't make the same mistake they just did, though, right? They're Boston taking the same exact position, almost the same exact scenario where they have Blizzard and Deadeye. That'll be the Blizzard. It's eaten. That's huge.
Gobbled all the way up there in the immortality field. It's forced out in response to Lynx's EMP. A lot of damage dealt, and Dalton, he's the one that finished off the first kill. A flashbang elimination onto Valentine. And the Vancouver Titans, they are fully in control of this one. For Boston, it's starting to get a little sticky here. Wolf, he feels incentivized to use his Amp Matrix there to just stop any further incursions upon Vancouver Titans territory.
Yeah, they counter the Amp Matrixes for each other. This will be a sound barrier for Boston as they get it a little bit earlier in the shatter from stand 1. And that's probably the difference in this fight, right? Fire just getting his sound barrier now. You have the sound barriers to match. That fight probably gets dragged out for an extended period of time. Chungsik forced him to go over to the Wrecking Ball to try and get a touch here. If you do, you have sound barrier, and Fire's dead, and that's the map. So it could have potentially been something if you lasted a little bit long, but Boston will take map number 1 here.
And they're well on their way to reversing history. Boston Uprising, just a reminder as well, that they have never won a series against the franchise of the Vancouver Titans. Certainly looking to reverse their fates this time around and put Vancouver Titans over to 0-9. That would be a brutal beginning, but there's still so much more of this series left to go, and we've seen already, Matt, that the underdogs can definitely respond back after a weak beginning. It's all about that mentality. The Vancouver Titans have got to remember there's breadsticks on the line here, so make sure you tune back in after this break, and we'll see whether they accomplish their task.
The Overwatch League is brought to you by T-Mobile, America's largest and fastest 5G network. Set your sights on the competition with T-Mobile. The Overwatch League is brought to you by Coca-Cola, the official refreshment of the Overwatch League, and by IBM, the official cloud and AI partner of the Overwatch League.
Welcome back to the game. It's the Vancouver Titans taking on the Boston Uprising here, and it's 1-0 at the moment to Boston, looking to reverse the fate of their franchise, who have never beaten the Vancouver Titans. I'm going to keep repeating that over the course of
madness.
the series, because it is wild, isn't it, man?
I mean, you think back to just kind of the dysfunction of the Titans, right? And you're like, well, everybody had to kind of get a win against them at some point, but the Boston Uprising did not. Some may remember last year for the Titans, like, Shockwave had games where he just absolutely dunked on the opponents and carried. And this was not the Boston Uprising you see this year. Much different roster. The only holdovers are Punk Fusions and Myungbong and Color Hex, right? Everybody else is brought in the offseason. They really retool the entire thing.
And there's only 2 of those actually being fielded in this game at the moment as well. The next map we're going into is Hollywood, but I want to walk you back through time as well to talk about some of their matches from last year, because despite the fact that the Vancouver Titans had that insane roster with the former Runaway team, with Bumper and Haxel and all of those players, 3 of their wins against the Boston Uprising happened in 2020, and all 3 of them were 3-0 slappings. Yeah. They beat them in Week 21 3-0, they knocked them out of the Countdown Cup 3-0, and they beat them in Week 29 3-0 as well. So all towards the latter half of the season, where Shockwave could play more of the Echo, and they gave them a shellacking. This is already very different here. Obviously a new Boston Uprising team, and I would argue a slightly weaker Titans team as well, but this first map has broken a bit of a curse for Boston. That's 9 maps in a row that they lost to the Titans until this one.
But the Titans didn't... Like, it wasn't... I think Boston obviously wins map 1, but it wasn't like an absolute drubbing. Like, I think the Titans were in it at some points, and I think they are having a lot of issues that I think we've seen other teams have, where it's time to go, but nobody goes, and they're just kind of waiting. And then eventually they go, but they're so weak from poke, somebody dies, and then it's all over. Boston on offense here. There's no way they play the Roadhog. This is probably D.Va swap, so...
I'm interested just to see whether they commit to Ryan. We haven't seen really that much of it being played here in Hollywood. It obviously favors it based on the map, but...
FRD gets slept here off the break. He makes it out, but look how much damage Changsik takes. I mean, they're going to be able to build some nano boost charge off of this, but Boston, they'll swamp Valentine off of the Hangzhou. He'll play Torb, so... no, I think we're going to get more swaps here. Is this Hangzhou? Oh no, they're going to go Sim.
They go for
this is interesting.
Sim May composition. The idea of this comp is that it gets stronger over time, but you have to get value out of the teleports. You need to be teleporting into good positions. Taking Cafe, great idea. That pushes the defenders into really uncomfortable locations. And it's the backline of Molten Fire you got to look at.
Yeah, I mean, they leave Changsik out to die here, and now this position is so good. Like you mentioned, you get the teleporter, and this is what the Symmetra's good at. If you can keep the Symmetra alive, and she just builds up this damage passively, it makes it even harder for the opponents to even come back and take the point. Nice pulse bomb there for Dalton. So it looks like the Titans may be able to battle back, as Dalton gets one, links her with another. Is they're going to be able to get a hold here without giving up a tick. They are so fortunate it worked out like that, because that could have been pretty bad for Vancouver.
It definitely could have been. The Boston Uprising seemed reluctant to get out of Cafe. They were chilling in there, having themselves a cup of coffee, bit of a croissant, just chilling. And instead they needed to get
a croissant? A croissant.
Okay. What do you call it? A croissant or something?
A croissant.
You're an uncultured Philistine. You think they pronounce it like Americans in France? In La France? No, in Paris? No. Okay, well now the backline is under a ton of pressure. Rolf has been frozen up. He instantly used the nano boost there onto FRD, but the Vancouver Titans, they collapse on it with perfection. They are reading these teleporter plays beautifully, man.
Yeah, I mean, I hope Boston has gotten the patch updates that Winston's gun cleaves, so when they all stand inside of the cafe clumped up on top of each other, Changsik just has to hold mouse 1 and just gets tons of damage. Like you mentioned, they get the positioning in the cafe or on top. They never push out, and they just let Vancouver lock them in there, which is probably the worst case for them. That is a Maywall that doesn't do anything.
I love that. If they just take the elevator up above the main wall, Valentine left bemused and befuddled while his architectural escapades go completely off whack. Boston Uprising, they're going to try and commit back to this one as well. Valentine uses Blizzard in the middle of that as well. Similarly ineffective. But the backline of the Vancouver Titans has been pushed, and now Faith, he's amping speed, and the Boston Uprising are taxiing around, trying to run down the Vancouver Titans wherever they are. Another good teleporter as well. So much more dynamic in this team fight to be able to take the fight to Vancouver. And Boston, they're going to be able to easily take this unless FRD, is he looking for the... If he went for the Remecha limb there, that's another breadstick. That's another one on the bingo card, Matt.
Well, you know, he's got to watch Casters to Masters. I'm the Remech King, as everybody knows.
That's how you're throwing our games, is you're going for Remech kills all the time instead of doing the Diva's job.
No. That is the Diva's job. That's what I read. I read it on pro guides. That's what the Diva's supposed to do.
Yeah, you've been on the Blizzard forums again, haven't you, Matt? You've been on the Blizzard forums.
Yeah, I've been on my on my burners on the Blizzard forums, really telling people that D.Va is supposed to be offensive with that mech usage. But the Titans, they get control of the high ground here. Everybody on the lift, they get knocked off. I wonder if some of these members of Boston actually remained up there. Nice stick there from Dalton. It's going to be the Immortality Field, though, keeping players alive.
Good work.
So it looks like Boston going to give up fighting for this high ground and try and get some space by pushing Cart.
In the meantime as well, Fire has moved over to the Mercy, so now the Boston Uprising are going a bit more aggressive up on the high ground. Great teleport and punish there. Take down Changsik, big Bionade as well, and they're setting up for a really aggressive maneuver. I love that. Being creative again with the teleport from I'm37 allows them access to a high ground where normally their rush composition would be so confined to that low ground. And the fact that Fire has moved over to that Mercy makes their backline more susceptible to those kind of hard engages.
But what do you move to here if you're the Titans? Is Ash Tracer with dive tanks the way to break this? Like, I think with how they're able to close the gap so fast with teleporter and speed, I'm not sure you can play like this. I almost think the way you could kind of go about it is to build an even stronger bunker. That's going to be Changsik using his Primal Rage. You'll get Myungbong, but taking out really fast after that. Sound Barrier keeping everybody on Boston topped up.
Very chunky from them. Another ultimate used there as well. Stan 1 brought down so weak. Dalton with a great pulse bomb, and they're actually able to finish it off. Stan 1 and Valentine, they both fall in this fight. It's turning in favor of the Vancouver Titans. Lynx's Bob doing a ton of work in the back as well. That's the 7th player out on the field that the Vancouver Titans need to tip things in their way. Has Lynx been getting any headshot eliminations, Matt? I haven't seen them pop up on the kill feed, but they could very easily slip by, and I wouldn't know whether to cross it off my bingo card.
We're gonna have to go to the official scorecard on Twitter, I think, to figure out what counts as the critical hit. Where
we'll check in after each map break.
Honestly, getting breadsticks would feel like you wouldn't get any league points for it, but it would feel like a win, though. I think for the Titans, they know breadsticks so important. Yet teleporter, it's gonna be a nano boost used on the Changsik, and he gets knocked down. That is an ambitious charge there for Stan 1 trying to go across the bridge. So, I think when these fights get split up, this is when the Titans can take advantage. They just got to find a player, but they're not able to do so right now.
Yeah, Changsik not quite synced up with Dalton there, ends up falling down early on in that fight. And the Boston Uprising, they're breaking their ankles with these teleport plays. They're really quite creative. I do like them, and they're getting their players in decent positions too. Now, though, it's Boston Uprising who are facing a little bit of crunch time. It's overtime. They need to be able to secure checkpoint B. And they're coming back in here against potentially a Dalton pulse bomb. And Fire makes a move over to Brig as well. Adds that more sustain to their comp.
I like the Brig switch. You're going to be close to a pulse bomb here, and you're going to be close to a Primal Rage. Oh, the Bay Wall goes down and blocks Changsik from getting out. Somebody's going to have to get on and get a touch. It's going to be Dalton.
Dalton as well with the pulse bomb. It takes down the Immortality Field, and then Dalton tickles down Myungbong as well. There it goes. Faith, 95%. He falls as well. Dalton, an absolute terror in the back lines. And Lynx is doing what he can. It's not a headshot of limb. It's not a critical hit, but they'll take that. The Vancouver Titans, they shut Boston out. Checkpoint B will not be theirs. That's got to add some morale.
Winnable scenarios here for the Vancouver Titans. As I thought that was a beautiful play from Dalton, right, where he's able to get the pulse bomb, doesn't get Myungbong, gets him weak, though, takes him out, and then when he's battling Faith, he actually beats him to the health pack around the corner, and at that point, Faith knows he's dead. So we'll see what Boston decides to do on their defense. The Titans, I wonder if they opt to go with something with the Symmetra right off the rip. I don't know how effective the Ashe type of setup is going to be on offense, but I don't know with Boston. Like, do you think you can get away with the Symmetra on defense here? You know, Symmetra May. I feel like it leaves you so vulnerable to so many different things.
Yeah, it is a little difficult to get value out of. I think the McCree would make more sense. That seems like it's what I'm37 is opting for here. You could try and get really aggressive and creative with the teleports, like, for example, trying to bait them in, teleport into their backline, try and get damage. You don't have to teleport your whole team through it, but just the Symmetra themselves to be able to get behind the Vancouver Titans. I do agree with you, though. I think the McCree is just a more well-rounded pick. I still want Boston to be the aggressors, though. Despite the fact they're on defense here, I want them to lure the Vancouver Titans in and then rush them down. I think that's their best chance of winning out this map. They genuinely could shut out Vancouver and checkpoint A.
I think the path to victory for the Titans, and it seems like a little bit of what they're looking for now, potentially, is just playing around EMPs. You know, if you're not the most organized team in the world, you don't exactly have to be to play around the Sombra. But they're going to go back, so they're going to play the Ashe with the Mercy Pocket on offense here. You're relying on, you know, big dynamites that coming out from Linkser here on the damage of all these players clumped up together. I do feel like this puts a lot of pressure on, you know, Changsik and Dalton to link up, which we haven't seen that well, you know, on the defensive side of things.
We certainly haven't. It also just puts a lot of pressure on Linkser. You're investing so many resources into this guy to actually get the job done. And while Stan 1's shield is taking a pummeling, the rest of the Boston Uprising aren't particularly. Again, as soon as Vancouver start to make this push forwards, they're giving up a tick, though. Dalton is playing the objective here.
They get the nano right away, and Changsik's going to go in. It's going to force the members of the Boston Uprising up the stairs. And that's Immortality field out already there for Boston, so they're not going to have it when they move onto the point.
I really like this from Vancouver. Putting so much objective pressure is great, and they land right on the top of I'm37. He goes down to a headshot. That's a critical hit elimination from Linkser in the kill feed. But the Vancouver Titans, they're dropping. They need to be able to eliminate Stan 1, and they do. Myunbong's and Matrix, it looked dangerous for a while, but is anyone really going to be able to contest Dalton? They're not. And Dalton gives the old Luigi to Faith.
I had no idea what the Luigi.
I'm going to be honest.
Did you know about the Luigi?
No, I've got to remove it from my vocabulary as well, because I feel like it's really horrifically offensive. But I'm just going to, you know, I can't help it. It's catchy. So I'm going to make a conscious effort. It's out of there. And instead we're going to replace it with a good
It's just like it's an Italian thing. I'm like, I've never...
then you started talking about a wooden spoon, which is even worse, Matt. So the two of you were both to blame there.
But one of us is right, one of us is wrong.
All right, take a look at Dalton. He is sneaky in the backlines, but he doesn't quite realize, I think, that the entirety of Boston is up on the high ground, waiting for this engagement to drop. What is that from I'm37? The Deadeye into the sky turns Chansik into fireworks as he pops him with a right click as well. Sorry, a left click. And there, another great play from Punk as he denies, or attempts to deny, the Resurrect from coming out.
And this should be winnable here for the Titans. Like, even if they end up losing some more players in this fight, still being able to move the cart throughout this stage. So Myungbong now on the Moira. And, just a few more kills there for Sinbun. It looked like Rolf and Linkser were stuck at the choke and not able to push through. So that is a huge win there for Boston, because it looked like Vancouver was going to at least be able to get the car going. You'll have a nano boost here for Changsik, and then you're also going to be able to pop Primal Rage after. What do you do if they Blizzard? Do you train Valkyrie and keep players alive through it? I think that's probably your big question here if you're the Titans.
Yeah, that backline is looking real susceptible. They're just trying to make as much space as possible, but there it goes. Blizzard is out. It's a defensive Blizzard. They don't use it on the backline of Vancouver. They tried to use it to peel Chansik away. That is a little bold from Valentine, I feel, but they still have the coalescence to try and fall back onto. It's not enough for I'm37, though. Fate, he pops the sound barrier. Again, too late for I'm37, but good enough for the rest of their team as they storm over the rest of the Titans. I mean, secure the team fight win.
Once the speed boost comes through and they're able to just, like, once Changsik has to, you know, jump back into the team and try and play around healing, like, there's nothing deterring from Boston to just speeding up and just marching through the Titans. The Titans, I think eventually, you know, and I say eventually, you're getting to the point where you have to consider switching, or else you're committing to this for the rest of the round.
Yeah, but if Linksa doesn't swap over to something that has some dive potential, they're just making a compromise that hurts all parties. Big Bionade there, which catches onto a couple, but it's I'm37 again that hits the floor. The problem is that Boston are just using I'm37 as bait, and the Titans are falling for it hook, line, and sinker.
And I mean, look at these positions that they're fighting the Boston Uprising in. Small hallways against the Reinhardt with a Moira behind. I mean, especially with the comp you have, you're gonna lose it. Like Boston, it's kind of smart, but they realize that they don't even need to try and play up on the high ground. That Vancouver will just keep running into them and giving the Reinhardt the advantage.
Yeah, and it also stops Dalton from being able to sneak anything away. Here comes another Blizzard, again used defensively to try and stop... Yeah, it's to try and stop Changsik from getting value out of his nano boosts. They did avoid him working up to Primal Rage there, though, and I'm37, he clicks up 3. That would have been great for the bingo card, except it's the wrong dang team!
I do wonder, though. The defensive Blizzard, I get why. Do you need a defensive Blizzard when you have, Lucio to disengage with speed? You have the Moira heals, just being able to freeze, and then just the Reinhardt damage and just this survivability. Like, I mean, I guess you don't really need it offensively, right? Because they've been so static. But Fire now will move over to the Lucio, and then you'll have Linkster play McCree. So trying to slow down some of these players coming on in.
Changsik swatting at I'm37. Doesn't quite manage to get that dead eye off, though, so good work from the Vancouver Titans tank line, but that's essentially a wasted Primal. That's huge not bio. A wasted Bionade, though. A 5-man purple, only missing onto Punk, forces out Fate's ultimate very early on in this fight. The problem is that Boston still get value out of it, because they're able to use that speed boost, get forwards, and run over Vancouver. Fire made the swap over to Lucio quite some time ago, but I don't blame you, Matt, because he hasn't really done too much with it. The whole team isn't playing around the speed boost disengages. Every time Faith amps speed and goes into them, the Vancouver Titans are already spread apart.
And what good is this? Now you pull out the Reinhardt. Like, we could have done this 2-3 minutes ago.
That would have been advised, I think.
Right, how many times do you have to not see it work at this part of the map before you change things up? Now you put FRD on the cart, heals force OT. That's a Maywall that gets boosted up, Linkser on top of it. Pulse Pump, sticks, doesn't get anything here, but the Coalescence comes out from Myungbong.
Unfortunate there, both DPS players from the Titans utilizing their ultimates to no avail. Stanwon, he drops low, the Vancouver Titans are finding picks, but Rolf is under so much pressure at the back there from Punk. He's trying desperately to stay alive. Great peel from Fire in the midst of all of this as he kills Faith. It's a Lucio boop, but I don't think that's what they meant on the bingo card. So unfortunately, you're gonna have to go. You're gonna have to go again. But this map, it absolutely is doable.
Yes, Dalton just hunting I'm37, gonna try and force recalls. He's gonna be the one to touch. They take him out. A nice boot by FRD, trying to knock Stan one away, but he's gonna get onto the cart.
And here we go, the Vancouver Titans. Changsik, he went in for the pin of a lifetime there, but he's knocked players off the payload. And there it is, the Vancouver Titans. They take the map. And we're going at least to a map 4 here in this. 1-1 at the half. Love to see it. The Vancouver Titans, they've still got a fight in them, despite the fact that they got a thrashing in the June Joust. Like you said, Matt, the strength of schedule was brutal. People were wondering whether they'd still have the mental fortitude to turn up in these games.
I'm telling you, today's been a weird day of Overwatch. London takes the shock to 5, a 5-gamer in the last series. This one, I think it could go the distance, and breadsticks for everybody. We'll find out if the Titans can secure a Game 5 in our next map coming up right after this.
The Overwatch League is brought to you by T-Mobile, America's largest and fastest 5G network. Set your sights on the competition with T-Mobile. And by Xfinity, the preferred internet provider of the Overwatch League.
The summer solstice is here. We've loved getting to see some of your awesome artistic creations this season on the Fan Art Gallery by Coca-Cola. And for the Summer Showdown, submit your summer-themed art, celebrating Overwatch League and Coca-Cola for a chance to be featured. You can submit your art at overwatchleague.com/art-gallery. It's the link at the bottom there. Matt, do you have any ideas about what you would want to submit? Are you going to create another Carl-esque creation?
Well,
but
summertime
it has to
Carl?
Be,
Summertime Carl?
Remember, it has to be summer-themed and it has to celebrate Overwatch League and Coca-Cola. So it has to be like Carl watching Overwatch League, sipping on a Coke or something.
Yeah, I mean, that's possible. Carl at the beach. Are you going to submit anything?
No, I can't draw. And that's exactly the same for you, by the way. It's just that people are praising your terrible creation.
I thought you were going to do some kind of a body painting, Overwatch summer body painting type of thing. But anyway, Lucio is entering this week. Power rankings by IBM Watson. You see Faith ranks in the top 10, sneaking in there towards the bottom at 8th, where he has been pretty good for this team. I think definitely an upgrade over some of the main supports they've had over the previous seasons. Helping Peel for Myungbong, he looks way better on the Lucio, being able to help him stay alive. It's still, what's interesting though, is it's still like this Boston lineup is better. It's way more improved, but I think it goes for the overall league. It's just way tougher to win this year, and we do have some substitutions. Color Hex coming in for the Uprising. This is the first time we've seen Color Hex this season for Boston. As what? Big. He's been a mainstay of the roster for the previous 2 years, pretty much. And then Gelbolshian for Punk.
Yeah, these are some big moves. I mean, Gelbolshian we've seen a lot of this season. He's been playing a lot of the D.Va, a lot of the Zarya for them as well when they've wanted to pull that out. Color Hex, I really don't know what to expect from him. But I can tell you one thing for sure. He is challenging FRD for that mustache game. If we had like a head-to-head, it would be of mustache versus, color versus FRD. I think... I appreciate the pirate look that Color Hex has got going on, but what is FRD up to? He's just twiddling the ball on the end of his finger.
Yeah, he's got a ball.
It must be a stress ball. But, I mean, the Vancouver Titans are probably pretty stressed. I think that the mustache on FRD would win it out. It's just such a dad look.
Yeah, it's way more thought out. Color Hex, it looks like, they just found him the other day, and he's like, hey, where have you been? Like, he's just been kind of, just out in the woods growing his beard mustache look. I like the fact, though, the long hair with the mustache. He's got, when he was setting up, he turned it aside. He almost had a little man bun thing going on. That's a pretty cool look.
Hey, if I could grow any hair anywhere on my body, I would. So I'm just perpetually jealous of people like Color Hex.
Oh, I thought you were about to say where you would want to grow the hair on your body. I was like, please don't tell any of us that. I was I hope it's your head.
I'm not going to tell you. I'm not going to tell you. But FRD, I mean, you could brush a floor with his mustache, couldn't you? It's so thick and bristly. I appreciate that. Links are showing off the sponsors as well.
Loves Coca-Cola. Yep. There's some
inspiration for your artwork.
Everybody trying to be the new Sato 2 leader. It looks like we're just waiting for Color Hex to get into the lobby. I feel like these are risky subs for Boston.
Let's theorycraft a little bit of what they would play. Like what jumps into your head when you see Color Hex being subbed in?
I'll start. I start here with the tanks. So I think Gelbolshian says you want to play some Zarya, Winston Zarya, like double bubble. And then moving on for that, do you want to play Ashe Tracer? Do you want to play Sombra Tracer? Really think you can take Valentine out to play some kind of double hit scan stuff.
So is the idea
in that wheelhouse?
Valentine did play a little bit of Tracer, especially I believe it was in the main melee, though I could be wrong there.
Yeah.
And I didn't think his Tracer looked that impressive. It clearly was an uncomfortable role. And remember, whenever we're considering the Boston Uprising, they were going to have Soon at the beginning of this season, and it just didn't work out getting him with visa issues. He wasn't able to participate on the team. A very unfortunate situation in which a much-loved figure was unable to be fielded for Boston Uprising. But also, strategically, that's a Tracer hole that it now exists in the Boston Uprising. And Valentine tried to fill it. Maybe Color Hex is going to fill it now? Or is your theory that I'm 37 would and Color Hex would kind of pick up the Widow and the Ashe?
Yeah, my theory is you go off or Aspire the Supermax. You get that guy on the squad and you're good. I mean, get him out of the 30 days. Yeah, get that guy on full time. But it looks like at least here on defense, Color Hex on the Tracer. So maybe that you've kind of assessed this roster and tried to find a spot where he can specialize, right? Because I feel like Color Hex has been a player where you kind of think back to the players like Tvik, right? Where they're very good at large groups of heroes, but not like a true master at one.
Thinking back to Tvik, you've got me searching through the annals of time there. That's taking my memory back way
think
further
back
than
think back to Zupe, right? Really like
wow, I mean, you're really dredging up ancient history. Was that the best example? Possibly not, but there you go.
It's the one that comes to my head. Yeah.
I'm really interested to see Color Hex here, though, because it is not the role that he is normally known for. He is like a flex DPS player most of the time. Known for his Genji,
Widow,
his Pharah. And that like niche Widowmaker pick. So I hope Color Hex has been in the lab, because he's got a lot of pressure on his shoulders. Not necessarily the most fierce Tracer in the world to go up against here in Dalton, but he needs to provide value for his team. And that synergy with Stand 1 is going to be good too.
Yeah, well, I would say that like the teamwork hasn't looked great overall from Boston thus far. So to now put a new Tracer in the mix, I think it makes it even harder. As I think a lot of eyes on Color Hex here. As that's going to be 937 slept, gets really low. See, Titans, they don't go in too deep. They're going to still play this rather slow.
Good Bionade, though. Excellent work from Rolf. That's a crucial part of the engage whenever you push across that rooftop area. To 937, he's pumping in lead from the side. Links with another critical hit kill. That's got to be added to the chart at this point. And Vancouver Titans, even though they're falling, the spawn advantage is going to be in their favor marginally. Oh, the Dalton
He gets a repair pack, yeah. He gets a repair pack, so he's going to live. So he's going to make it out. And I think, if Chungsik doesn't die so quick there, you probably would have seen them invest the nano boosts. You do have Rolf with the nano, Myungbong with it as well. So wonder if you're gonna, get a little bit closer to Primal and then build this. I'm surprised Boston has given up this area of the map up top on this blue box.
They were coming back off the spawn. Not much they could do to really try and contest it. And now a nano primal rage straight into the backlines. Stan 1, though, has tried his own counter dive, and his primal rage has not been put to sleep. He's doing work in the backline. He doesn't even have a nano boost on it. But Stan 1 showing that tank supremacy there over the top of Chungsik. A very new addition to the league after having taken a 2-year break. And the difference, honestly, it shows there. And that's half the time back used for the Titans.
I mean, trying to come back and after a 2-year break into what is probably the most competitive season we've ever had. That's going to be 2 Graviton Surges laid on top of each other. Okay, so one of the things on the bingo card was a triple kill Deadeye, I believe, so he misses out by 1.
That's so brutal. If he'd just been able to get 1 more, we could have been there. Another part to that as well, Matt, I haven't brought it up yet, but a double kill from Dalton with one of these pulse bombs, and you can cross that off the bingo card too. But forget about the bingo card, forget about breadsticks. Vancouver Titans, they want to win this game, and they're doing a good job of it so far. Checkpoint A secured with 4 minutes on the clock.
So there is an official update here on the bingo card from the Titans. I feel like that's an important thing to give up.
It is.
So we have marked off the 3 critical hits for Linkser. We have the middle one. What can unlock the breadsticks? It can be a map 5. We're so close.
We're back to square 1 map. We're back to square 1, Matt. I called you.
It's
Matt
like it's like Tenet. Time is moving forward and backwards at like the same time. We're on some loop. I think that's what the movie was about. I wasn't really sure what that movie was about. I watched the whole thing though.
Big Bionade there onto the tank line of the Titans. Purpled up, and Chungsik can't do too much. They have a nano with which to engage, and the sleep is good as well. Rolf doing work inside. The nano boost, though, goes onto FRD instead of Chungsik. That's going to apply a lot of damage out there, but Rolf himself falls. FRD purpled up as well, and this pressure is just too much. The Vancouver Titans tank line, they just can't get what they'd like to do done.
You do have a nano that comes through here at the end for Boston, so you may have ended up wasting the nano that you could have held on for this next fight, but this has become one of, if not the hardest part of any map to get through, when the opposing team can take control of the high ground. I know the Winstons are so good dropping down with Zarya bubbles and big biotic grenades. on the offensive team, it's so difficult. What do you do? It's going to be a Deadeye from Linkser coming out, trying to just buy some space and not a triple kill. But I know maybe Chungsik gets to the high ground with a primal here, knocks players out very far. Use of the flashbang that's exactly what Chungsik does, trying to knock one player down towards the Vancouver Titans to try and get a pick.
They need to isolate that player and take them out, but on the other side of the equation, Gibulsi has used his Gravitic Surge, and the Titans, they fall inside of it. What is going on there? Okay.
Gravitic Surge, is that new?
Yeah. Graviton. Gravitic, Graviton, the Grav, whatever. Listen, I haven't ingested a dictionary and a thesaurus like a usual podcaster. You gotta be reasonable with me.
I hope you wouldn't ingest a dictionary.
How do you think Mitch got that massive? Where does he train? At the library. That's where Mitch trains.
He eats books and just absorbs
here we
their
go.
words.
Matt, if they can survive this Bionade, which, okay, they haven't quite been able to, I thought there was an opportunity there for a grab and a pulse bomb. But instead, Dalton uses his pulse early, finds time 37, finishes off Gabulsi inside the Graviton from FRD. A Graviton, not Gravitic. There you go, Matt. And Boston Uprising, they're just able to hold on off the value of the poke they got at the beginning.
And the trades aren't good enough. Like, Vancouver is going in, and they're, getting a kill or two at the start with an ult, and they end up, losing 2 players. And with that high ground control and where the card is positioned, they're just not good enough. And now you see FRD switch over to the D.Va, so this will help kind of mitigate some of those big biotic grenades coming in on him. That's actually a flashbang that connects onto Stand 1 and Color Hex, and Dalton's able to burn down Color Hex, so that's a big pick. They got to get the cart out into the open here, underneath, try and force these players from the Uprising down.
But Dalton doesn't really know what his job should be. He wants to keep pushing that objective, but he also knows that he needs to collaborate with Chungsik. And as Chungsik takes the nano boost, Dalton moves off the payload. With only 20 seconds left, they haven't got the kills they really need. The one onto Myeongbong is good, but there's the response immediately from Color Hex. And the Boston Uprising still control this high ground. Dalton falls. The Vancouver Titans, with only 4 players alive, are desperately trying to hold on. But his links are in the front line as well, getting pressured from above. Gibulsi just terrorizing him from the high ground. And the Boston Uprising, they're holding strong. Vancouver, they're going for one last desperate attempt here. Dalton would have to be a magic maker, but fire, he falls at 93% of his ultimate, and no one even touches the objective. A heartbreaker for Vancouver. They looked like they were good. 4 minutes on the time bank as the attack checkpoint B, but it was not to be.
And it was Myeongbong landing a biotic grenade that hits fire as he's close to a rally. And then it also hits onto Chungsik, so you lose both of those players. That's effectively your push. But I want to go back and talk about something that you mentioned, that like maybe Dalton was a little bit confused on his role. At least from my opinion there, if you push that payload out into the open, that's going to force them down from the high ground. And then your teammate's going to push up through that staircase and play for the ship. Now you control the high ground, right? Now instead of being the team that has to jump up and be the more proactive team and try and take that high ground back, now you control it via, the payload space, right? They have to respect the fact that the payload is, moving forward. At least drop a player or 2, right, to go contest. I feel like maybe you didn't get the payload far enough to make them worry about that.
And I think that's what I was alluding to when I said that Dalton felt like he had split responsibilities. It's a thing that happens often in these kind of teams, is that a player Dalton knows that he needs to be contesting a payload there. But he also knows that Chungsik is going to get no value out of his nano boost unless Dalton is helping him. And so he feels pulled in both directions. And it's that leads to poor decisions being made. It's all about timing and shot calling. They need to advance the payload before they go for an engage like that. But all of the moving cogs end up getting mixed up in the Titans' heads.
That's also where they end up missing the Zarya for the Titans, because Dalton could have moved the payload if you'd have had the Zarya with the bubbles and the extra damage. Kind of playing from the ship, trying to create some more space and get some more damage out for Chungsik. Maybe you could have afforded some more payload progress. So it's going to be a quick jump to the high ground here for Stand 1. Just trying to knock the Titans off of that spawn.
And you'll see that Myeonbong's going to throw this Bionade as they go for the real engagement. Pushes up, tries to get it off. Stanwon under a huge amount of pressure, but there it is. Bionade comes through, catches onto Changsik and Linksa, and gives the Boston Uprising control of this. It's the exact same execution that all of the teams use, and it's been used the same way since the main melee. But it's just been written. This is the way, when you play Double Bubble, to take the control of that high ground. They knew that Bionade was coming, but they don't have a defense matrix to stop it, because both teams are playing the Zarya. And Boston, they just keep chilling forwards.
Lots of teams stop it without the defense matrices. We are waiting for somebody here as Dalton's on a flank. I don't know exactly who it is.
At any point here as well, Stanwon can take this Nano Boost and the Primal Rage and just tear apart the Titans. Look what he's doing to this backline, it's filthy. And remember that while all this is happening, the payload goes rolling into the checkpoint. 5 minutes on the clock, and crucially, Matt, they win this fight, which gives them high ground priority. Ooh!
This is no good for the Titans. And you feel bad. I mean, we can see it from the third-person POV there with Changsik. Like, what is he even supposed to do? He doesn't have his Tracer to jump on a target because Dalton's on some, massive flank. His teammates are behind getting Primal. They can't go back and, peel for them because he's got to contest the card. So he's just standing there, just taking so much damage. Now he's got to go towards a high ground. That'll be a grab that comes out for both sides. Pulse Bomb in for Color Hex, but it's going to be the Titans who end up winning out on it. Some damage from FRD, a Pulse Bomb from Dalton, and the one kill with a Deadeye from Linkser is probably enough to get them back some semblance of control. At least the cart will not progress.
Yeah, the cart's not going to get moved forwards, but it's really about this high ground control. And if fire falls... Oh, great whip shot, I think that was, but still he dies. Unfortunate scenes there. And big traded Graviton surges in the midst of all of this. The IM37 pick, though, could be crucial. The Vancouver Titans are coming back in. They don't have high ground control, but they just need to stop this payload. And it's another big Bionade. Changsik and Linksa caught. Linksa needs to get healed back up here as he pats towards where Rolf is positioned. There's a lot of pressure here on Changsik to be able to block the payload and get value from his Primal.
And Boston is doing the exact thing that we just would have said we would have liked the Titans to see. Color Hex down on the cart and everybody else fighting for the ship. I'm 37 from a distance. Deadeye doesn't get anything, but this is going to be a Nano Boost on the stand one, trying to push back the members of the Titans.
Yeah, and you've got to keep your eyes on the payload here as well, because the Titans need to contest that objective at the same time. Boston Uprising have the option, the ability to ignore it if they please. Go, seek kills, and as Vancouver fall piecemeal, left, right, and center, it's Boston coming out in control of this map. Fairly comfortably, still a lot of time in the time bank, and they take this series 2-1. They have a lead here, and on the precipice of being able to close it out.
And I think once the game starts to speed up and you have these different types of dive compositions come in, I think that's when you can start forcing some of these mistakes and indecision from the Titans. Because we mentioned, Changsik is a new addition to this team, gets added during the previous tournament. It's still not a ton of time to work a main tank in, especially one who's been out for 2 years, into Overwatch League game shape. Very difficult to get him up to speed, but the Titans have put up a good fight in this series. We'll see if they can force a map 5 right after this.
Coca-Cola is the official refreshment of the Overwatch League.
Some teams are out looking for the Summer Showdown trophy, some looking for the Countdown Cup later this year, maybe even some thinking about the Overwatch League Grand Finals. Some teams, Josh, they just want bread. And that's what the Titans are after. They are on a conquest, a long journey for breadsticks. And our long journey for breadsticks, according to the Vancouver Titans social media page, leads us back to where it all started. The dream of a Game 5. Can they do it?
There's a large carbohydrate-based famine occurring in the rough Canadian Vancouver area recently. It's been rough for Vancouver Titans. They originally set their goal to be, if we make it to a map 5, then we will hand out free breadsticks. Then they changed it to being a Lucio elimination, an environmental Lucio boost.
Too detailed, too niche.
Yeah, and that ended up not being... I mean, not every map has the opportunity for that to occur either. So even though it sounds like it's more attainable, it didn't end up being. So now we end up in the same scenario. If Vancouver Titans are able to win this map, not only do they push it to a map 5 and have a chance of being able to secure their first win of the 2021
the more important
season,
of the two things. Yeah, more important
Oh,
of the two.
arguably slightly more important. But they also will be able to secure free breadsticks for fans in the Vancouver area, I think. So, we will be able to get breadsticks.
Somewhere people will be able to obtain breadsticks.
That's all I care about. That's all I care about, is someone somewhere eats because of the Vancouver Titans' success. That's all I care about here. But it is the Boston Uprising who are 2-1 up at the moment, so we can't count our chickens before they hatch. The Vancouver Titans are 1-2 down at the moment. And let's take a look at Punk's statistics from D.Va in this match as well. Because he is getting subbed back in here for this match. He's a substitution to replace Gibbulsi, who was just in to play the Zarya. And this is looking pretty tasty.
He has always been a player that, when you looked at Boston, even in their struggles, I never really thought that he was a player, who was sometimes like out of position or making like pretty bad plays. I always found he was like a really solid player. So to see with a better lineup around him, his stats go up is not that surprising for me. Valentine also comes back in here for the Uprising. So I'm pretty happy, though, to see Punk get some run, get some playtime. It seems like they've really split up roles between him and Gibbulsi. So Hanamura will be the next map in the set. This is something where I think we go back to May McCree, right? You see both teams, they wanted to play like the Ryan D.Va, May McCree. You can definitely do that here on Hanamura.
Yeah, I definitely think that is an option that both teams could lead towards. For the Vancouver Titans, I guess it's about just finding which composition you feel most comfortable on at getting that edge over Boston. And yeah, I'm inclined to agree with you, Matt. I think the Reinhardt-based comps are where you want to go. If we think about how Hollywood went down, Vancouver were attacking for a long time, trying to force the Winston, until they just swapped to Rhine, and everything simplified. It feels like Titans are just able to get in a much more of a groove when they're playing that head-to-head.
I feel like it's a way easier style of play for a new player to come in and play. Like when you're asking Chungsik to come in to a new team, come into the league after a long period of off time, and ask him to play at a very fast pace, trying to communicate with a Tracer, who he's never really played with outside of this. I assume there's a language barrier there as well.
The level of play has gone up dramatically, man.
Yes.
From where Chungsik was playing in 2019 at the at the Tier 2 level, to be able to then move into Tier 1 competition, which this is 2 years down the road when everyone has improved. That is a large ask. I'm not sure Winston was released when Chungsik last played, so getting him on the Reinhardt is definitely more comfortable.
Yeah, Overwatch wasn't in HD when he was playing.
It was still in black and white.
Yeah, it was a very long time ago.
You couldn't tell which team you were on.
Yeah, you had to.
All right. We got mirror compositions
nice
on either side. Good Maywall there from Linksa, yeah. And they catch out stand 1. Not too much damage done to him, though, and the counter-attack comes out. Chungsik dropped to half health. But this is all about Linksa. When that Maywall comes back off, oh, there we go. Valentine, his counterpart, taken down on the other side due to pressure from FRD. And that is a good beginning for the Titans.
I also feel like this puts other players for the Titans on some of their best roles as well. Like FRD can play the D.Va. Linkser, I think, over the years has had a pretty decent May. One of like the more underrated heroes that he can play. And then put Dalton on McCree, right? This makes total sense. I think you look at it, and this is where they can definitely kind of form an advantage.
Interesting Maywall there from Linkser to try and stop the Boston Uprising from taking that flanking route, but nevertheless, the speed boost engage. It runs over runs over the Titans. And Matrices were clashing on either side, but that is quite clearly a fight in favor of the Uprising.
So you will be able to get a touch here. FRD will jump on. It's going to get frozen from the backside here as I'm 37 going to deal with fire as well. So this will be Boston able to take the point. Dalton just face planting onto it there at the end. So everybody up now for Vancouver. Fast spawns coming in for some of their players. They're going to have a serious fight for this high ground. Boston has a lot of ultimates to use to be able to get up here. And you get that McCree set up on the high ground, specifically with a Deadeye, you're in a lot of trouble.
Do they realize that Linkser doesn't have his ultimate yet? He's just got it online, so both Mays have that Blizzard available. Oh, competing Deadeyes on either side as well. The wall blocks it up in the way. Dalton chips through his own May wall there, the one that was coming up from Linkser. And both Dalton and I'm 37 get nothing. The pacifist run from both McCrees.
I was going to say, I thought that Boston may have thought that Linkser didn't have the Blizzard because he wasn't really involved heavily at that beginning at the fight. It's going to be FRD and Linkser being able to get out with their lives. It's going to be an Ant Matrix used from the high ground. You just Maywall and look at Chunksy. I mean, he can just hide behind this pillar. Now can't hide now as he's got players shooting him from every angle up on the high ground.
So much damage on that off angle coming in from Punk, and Faith commits the sound barrier to it as well. So much point pressure, just kills left, right, and center. FRD, he actually finds the pick onto Valentine. It would be very difficult to turn this one around, but Changsik has also taken down Punk, who's trying to self-destruct. And these spawns are massively in favor of the Titans.
Yeah, and with the way the Titans are juggling the point, they have players jumping on from each side. That's going to be a pin there. It gets taken out halfway through, but the Titans are able to hold, and they only give up 51%, not even that second tick. That's a huge win there for Vancouver.
That is crazy. How on earth did Valentine die to FRD's bomb? It was just out in the middle of nowhere, zoning people. But Boston had all the space they needed. They had the picks they needed. Everyone was buffed up with the sound barrier as well. It felt like a slam dunk that they were going to be able to get that. And yeah, Matt, to not even get a second tick. And now they're pushing in against a bit of an ultimate disadvantage too. It's not that big. And honestly, the Myunbong's Ant Matrix might turn it in their favor.
I was literally going to say, I think the biggest thing coming in here is going to be Myunbong's Ant Matrix. They may not expect him to have it already. That's going to be a Deadeye for Mine 37 trying to push up the high ground. He gets stunned as Immortality Field trying to save him and stand one. It's not good enough though, as the Titans now showing some aggression, pushing straight through.
I like it. Was that a bit of a flash shatter happening there from Dalton?
Yeah,
it could have been.
Yeah, FRD gets stuck out in the middle of nowhere, but yeah, it looked like potentially there was like a stun in there, right? So had to be a flash with a shatter right after, or just the shatter that comes in. So a really nice hold there again for the Titans. Myungbong, luckily for Boston, holds on to that Ant Matrix, doesn't pop it there. You will have the Ant Matrix to match on the other side though.
Yeah, the Vancouver Titans have a ton of ultimates to be able to work with, and they got to use them proactively as well. I don't know about that. It's a little too early. You are very unlikely to catch a kill, which means that all they have to do is kite this Ant Matrix and then start to push forwards again. Really, when you go for those aggressive plays, you're trying to wait for Boston to become vulnerable, to position themselves in an area where you can get a kill with it.
Yeah, and they don't have to put any effort into disengage from it. They just move around the corner. That's going to be a Maywall that comes in, and then the Blizzard right behind it there from Linkser. It's a really nice way to prevent the D.Va from eating it up. That's going to be stand one with a shatter, gets blocked there by Changsik. So Titans really starting to come alive up here on the high ground. They do lose Dalton. Then FRD may be gone a little bit too deep. That's going to be sound barrier used for both sides, trying to keep everybody topped up as FRD he's got really far behind.
Yeah, it doesn't go for the remake elimination either. The good part here for the Titans is that they've stalled the Boston Uprising out a long way away from the objective. So Titans are going to be able to get the spawns in early on. What are these players up to on the high ground? They didn't back off in time. They didn't reconnect with the rest of their team. And now the Vancouver Titans are fighting without any DPS players available. This has opened the door for Boston. 2 ticks already as Shadow goes deep into the enemy spawn as Rolf pops his Ant Matrix. But it's too little, too late. And the Boston Uprising with 1 minute and 9 seconds on the clock. They take checkpoint B.
So, not the worst defense there from the Titans. A minute on the clock for point B is not the, fastest time ever. I feel like they just got a little bit too over-aggressive. I mean, we saw the position that FRD was in all the way behind them. A player staying alive. You had Stan 1 getting frozen out in the middle of nowhere, and there was nobody else there for the team. Maybe you had some of those DPS players that we saw get caught out on the high ground coming back late, but still not they never got another chance at a second fight, which you thought they may have gotten with how far up they were playing.
Yeah, odd decision-making from Linkser and Dalton, but put it in the past. The Titans need to get success with their attacking round here to push us to a map 5. This would not just secure the breadsticks, man, but this would be their first map 5 that they've gone to in 2021, and it would give them their opportunity to take their first match of 2021 as well.
Yeah,
here
London got close.
Blinking people. Yeah, London got torturously close today. And Vancouver have not even had that problem, honestly. They haven't gotten close in any of the matches that they've played so far this season, especially recently. But they need to gather all the morale they possibly can for this moment right here. This match feels like it could be winnable.
I'd love to see them play this. Play the Symmetra at the start, and at least just try and get this first point cap. Play the Symmetra, brawl it out on the point, using the TP. You can maybe even play it going into the second stage of the map. Uprising do know this is coming, and we don't see any TP used. They actually just walk through the choke. So yeah, maybe a TP from the high ground to the opposite side high ground, kind of try and double back behind.
They could also fake it as well. There's a lot of options available to Dalton here, so we'll see what Vancouver end up going for. The TP has been saved up until the entire point that they've got to the objective. And yeah, Valentine's Maywaller gets nothing. Great wall from Linkser. Cuts off the rest of the the rest of the Boston Uprising, separates the healers from the front line, and they roll over them. That's a weird one.
That is so bizarre. They don't, because of the threat of the Symmetra, they don't have to use a teleporter the entire time. Valentine's Maywall was like 10 seconds too early. I mean, there was nobody even close to being sectioned off on the point. And once that happened, it was just the Titans ran forward. As Boston's backing up, they back up right into a choke, and they just get Maywalled and just mowed down. That is an odd one, as the Titans, they secure point A. But get this, Josh. You have a Shatter, a Symmetra wall out of this, and an Amp Matrix. You have some ultimates here. You could potentially make something out of it for the Titans.
And a big old time bank. Here we go. The Titans pathing up to the top right high ground. It's normally going to be the Amp Matrix that they use to start this one out, but it's a fake. They're going towards the bottom, getting in a cheeky little teleporter. Has anyone on Boston scouted this? Yes, Punk has. A good wall this time from Valentine as well to be able to stop them as they try and route towards the staircase. But the Vancouver Titans, with their Immortality Field, have taken control of the objective. This is now a bit of a sticky scenario, but Stan 1 deals with that threat fairly well there, blocking the Earth Shatter and forcing the rest of the Titans into uncomfortable scenarios. I'm 37 as well with the Deadeye. The Blizzard was eaten in the midst of all of this as well. Linkser getting no value out of his May, and the Titans collapse. A nice try, but not enough.
That Blizzard goes down though, Josh, and that could have been a point take. It would have slowed them down trying to get around that corner, because it's a good Maywall from Linkser. It's just the Blizzard gets eaten, and if it doesn't get eaten, you have players stuck there and they're not able to get back. Maybe a player or two gets on, but you would have been able to take them out on the point. Still, significant progress though for the Titans on that first attack. They get 87%, just one tick. And look, without taking the point, that's probably as good as you can ask for, right? You come back now with a sound barrier and a self-destruct, maybe you can force players off of the point enough to take it.
There's another nice wall from Valentine, and a bit of a boot knocks Changsik down to the low ground, isolates him as an easy target for the Boston Uprising, and now they have to path back up to the top because, okay, they've got the initial elimination, but they've also lost high ground control. So, well played, slow, discipline from the Boston Uprising, and the Titans are forced to reset. Couldn't get value out of the ultimate advantage they had because Boston were decisive enough with their engagement off the back of what have been two in a back-to-back good Maywalls from Valentine.
It's a big missed opportunity there for the Titans, because now you're walking into fights that the Uprising have an advantage in. That's going to be the Amp Matrix. Nice Maywall there for Linksers. They're going to wrap far. They're going to try and go maybe from the low ground. They bait it out. They bait it out. Just players waiting up top here. They're going to go back to the high ground.
They don't quite have their Amp Matrix yet, but Rolf will almost certainly have it online at the beginning of this fight. FID putting pressure up top. This isolates Valentine as well. Can't quite. There's Punk again! No way! Punk has been an absolute menace on the D.Va since he's been subbed back in. Gabolchi out, Punk in, and this superstar from New Zealand is just guzzling up Blizzard's left, right, and center. That is crazy.
Punk's Australian, right?
No, he's from New Zealand, isn't he?
No,
is he Australian?
He's from New Zealand. I think Punk is Australian. Yeah. Oh, Mitch. If I'm right, Mitch and us are gonna have
the same
words with you. Oh, you mute yourself right now. We can take a look here. So, this is gonna be a big shatter from stand 1 as the Amp Matrix up on the high ground. This is after the Blizzard was eaten, and that's beautiful. Just marches on through the players of the Titans. So Maywall splits them all. No supports left there. That's going to be a self-destruct that comes on in Blizzard.
Yeah, big engagement there. Boston really trying to take fights into their own hands as Lynx secures another critical elimination, but that one's already been stricken off the bingo card. You don't need to worry about it. Valentine's got to worry, though. He gets plucked out of midair, and there's Myunbong just coming back into the fray as well. Close to an Amp Matrix. Might be able to stabilize, but Vancouver, even though they start to get these good opportunities, they're always losing a player, and when that happens, spawn advantage is so much against them.
All right, you got to get this Blizzard down. If you get this Blizzard down from Lynx, I mean, look at the ultimates on the other side. You can win this fight.
All eyes on Punk.
Shatter, Amp Matrix, yeah, you got to land this. It's Punk's
all
job for Boston. Yeah. What?
Oh, that is brutal. Sickening stuff from stand 1. That looks like it was set up, but I don't exactly know how. Perhaps a little flash into the shatter. But Myunbong providing all of the assists with his Amp Matrix too. Devastating for FRD. But at least they have enough time on the clock to go for another engagement.
I'd love to get a look at that. The way it happened almost looked like shades of Bumper, just the jump around the corner, blind shatter.
Here we go with the replay as well.
Let's see. He's probably using the camera to look back. Yeah, he's using the camera
using
to
the
look
third
back.
person. Little speed boost, shatter.
What?
He just caught them all completely unawares.
Yeah,
and now,
he's not even looking.
Now we go back to our previous win condition. It's on Punk v Lynxer. Oh, Lynxer, he manages to get it off this time, not guzzled up by the hungry hippo of Punk. Hippos live in Australia, right? I don't know much about the southern hemisphere.
They live in the water.
I've got to be honest. The water, just water anywhere you can find it. And there's a shatter on the other side from Chance.
I don't know if they're going to be able to do
pin
this.
as well. That's one Reinhardt pin him as well. I believe that's the first one. There could be more across the rest of this series too. The Vancouver Titans there, almost close to FRD, flattening someone with his remake as well. They've got to deal with Myunbong at the back. Great prioritization as Myunbong popped his Amp Matrix, was trying to do a ton of pressure towards the back lines, and now they've only got 19 seconds left.
They are picking up some kills, though. That's going to be a bomb. Spread players off of the point. Fire takes out stand 1. Chungsik is so low. You're trying to keep him up, but Deadeye can't keep his shield up. That's going to take FRD out of his mech as the legs are locked coming back from Dalton, but the ex-commissioner clicking heads, and it's going to be Boston getting a hold, getting a win, preventing bread being served to Canada. So that is a close game, though, man. That is a... the Titans had such an opportunity. They get 87% on their first push, and nothing after that.
They had over 3 minutes to be able to have subsequent fights where they could have taken a single tick. And it just slips out of their grasp again. It is the Boston Uprising that managed to take this match and set themselves more towards a 500 record of the season. They're 4-5 right now in the standings. But the story for me of today is continued heartbreak for London and Vancouver. Both of these teams have yet to find that slippery, elusive opening match win.
We'd be in bad trouble if they weren't finding any kills. I mean, we were waiting for them to get one kill. We'd be in a lot of trouble. These days wouldn't be that long. What time is it? It's 6 o'clock. I mean, that's they don't find a win.
I'm gonna be honest though, Matt. You know the stat off the top of your head. How long have the Vancouver Titans gone without being able to take an objective?
It was match? Before this, it was like May 28th. I think our stats people were saying it was against either the Gladiators or the Reign in the last tournament. So they do that today. They take a map.
Exactly, but to me, it hurts even more. But on the other side of things, we've got to give credit to the Boston Uprising, and the player, in our opinion, that made the largest difference, our player of the match presented here by Xfinity, is Stand One. He was able to have a bit of a playground here. When it came to the Reinhardt, he was making a big difference, honestly. Spearheading a lot of their pushes, also very good playing a range of different main tanks today. And he's just been such a rock for the Boston Uprising, a franchise that struggled for a while to be able to get someone, honestly, to replace the big shoes that Guangzhou left so long ago on this roster. Yeah. But Stan One, coming in from the Shanghai Dragons, feels like he's doing it for them this season.
Yeah, he's looked quite good for this team. Definitely a serviceable main tank, and I thought you saw today, specifically on the Reinhardt, a real difference maker. The Earth Shatters were huge consistently, like we saw there on Hanamura towards the end. Just being able to put down tons of damage. I also think just staying alive, right? He does a very good job staying alive. I think you have to give a lot of credit to Punk there as well. As they've put together, a good rotation now. They have Galbolshi that they can bring into play, some Zarya in certain situations. But that is it for us. The Boston Uprising get a win today against the Titans. After this break, we'll have Danny with Punk. Stay tuned.
Coca-Cola is the official refreshment of the Overwatch League.
Welcome to the Watchpoint Post Show presented by IBM. We're joined now by Punk from Boston Uprising. Congratulations on the win, Punk.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, and I think I heard Sideshow saying that that you were from New Zealand. Is that correct?
No, I'm actually very disappointed that I was called New Zealand. No hate to any New Zealand people, especially Color Hex. We've got him on the team, but he's definitely got me and him switched around. So that's.
Do you have anything that you want to say to Sideshow? Do you want to say something to him?
Oh, just don't do it again. It's insulting.
All right, nice warning to Sideshow. Yes, big warning. Don't say that ever again. All right. So and also, after today's match, we've seen both you and Gabosi. You guys are both off tanks for the Boston Uprising, and of course, you guys are both great off tank players. So I just personally wanted to ask you guys, like, who comes in when? Is it sort of like map specific, or is it sort of hero specific? Like, how does that happen?
Yeah, so it's been map specific in the past and like hero specific. So sometimes I'll perform better on like Sigma or something on a certain map, and so I'll get to play that map. But other times, Gables, he does a bit better in practice, playing one of our strategies like Zaya and Watchpoint Gibraltar, for example. We ran him in practice from the start, and so it just kind of ends up that way. But it's not as rigid as people might think.
Okay, so it's basically like it just depends on practice and like scrims. If you if the team feels like you're doing a little bit better than you go in, it's sort of like that?
Yeah, pretty much. Just how we feel going into the match.
All right, cool. Thank you so much. All right, now my next question for you is, of course, after today, you guys have another match tomorrow, and it's none other than the Florida Mayhem that you guys will be facing off tomorrow. What does Boston Uprising need to do to sort of get the win against the Mayhem tomorrow?
I think the main thing is just keep a level head, because obviously today I think we could have definitely swept the Titans. Dropping the map it's not bad, but just keeping a level head and playing our game the whole way through, I definitely think we could have swept them. So going into tomorrow, I think it's just focusing on creating plans and just doing what we practice, which is easier said than done, but
yeah. And also, I mean, I don't know if you watched the Florida Mayhem game, and of course, I think this was their first match in the Summer Showdown, but is there like a weakness that you saw if you saw their match before your match started?
Yeah, I don't know any specifics just yet. I imagine we'll go home and watch the game together, but they definitely looked rocky in some areas as well, but we'll try and figure that out and come up with a game plan for tomorrow.
Awesome. All right. Thanks, Punk. That is it for the interview, and good luck in your match tomorrow.
No worries. Cheers.
All right. Thank you so much. Let's head back to the desk.
Thank you so much, Danny. Thanks a lot, Punk, for joining us for a quick chat. And of course, congratulations to the Boston Uprising. First time in franchise history they're actually taking down the Vancouver Titans, let alone actually win maps against the Vancouver Titans, which, again, crazy stat there. Thanks so much to our producers for digging that one out. And yeah, Vancouver Titans, unfortunately, the W as well as the Breadsticks remain elusive. They can't bring it home. But we do have to discuss the match at hand and watch this unfold, gentlemen.
Yeah, it was an interesting one. I think it was very back and forth. It was cool to see Vancouver get that map, but I agree with Punk for the most part. I think Boston probably should have had the ability to completely sweep them here. Just a couple of things went wrong for them, and when I think what he said is very telling for what we saw in the game of they just weren't playing their own game. They were very confident and strong on the style that they were playing when they got IM37 on that hit scan, when they could play that brawl style, and Stan 1 was on that Reinhardt, they looked really good. But as soon as they started deviating away from that, playing Vancouver Titans game that enabled Dalton, that enabled Linksa to really sort of come alive, that's where I think they struggle from time to time. So not the worst thing in the world for the Boston Uprising, and Vancouver Titans did look improved from what we saw from them in the June joust. So good signs for both teams. I just want to see, both of these teams start to like really come out of their shells, because neither one of those have had really a convincing or dominant win that gives us sort of hope for the future for them heading into playoffs in the future.
Yeah, I feel for the Boston Uprising, it felt like they were playing down to their opponent a little bit here, but still they're able to come up with a 3-1 win, and those are the kind of wins you really need, right? So if you happen to play down to your opponent, you're not really feeling yourself, you're not playing your best game, you sub in Colorex here on Tracer on Gibraltar, and essentially trying this out, right? And you're still able to get this win. I feel like overall that's a pretty good sign. Stand 1 here on Hanamura had tons of great Earth Shatters as well, keeping the front line solid. So I feel like overall the Boston Uprising, even though you lost that one map, you kind of have to feel pretty good about this one. Oh my god, that Shatter is lovely. Thank you, Stand 1. And so close to the breadsticks. I mean, had it gone one more map, there would have been breadsticks. Otherwise, you would have had to hope for 2 things to happen. I mean, we were like, we were really close to a McCree, triple Deadeye, and we were close to a Pulse Bomb double in. Maybe if we counted Boston Uprising's input as well, maybe this could have happened. Maybe Vancouver Titans need to rely on another team, their opponents, to perhaps, get across the finish line. I'm just saying, if the opponent's got a boop, you can still celebrate with breadsticks, even if your own teammate goes down.
I mean, it's kind of rude at this point that the opponents are not at least trying to be a little helpful in the endeavor for bread.
Yeah,
right?
someone could stand near a ledge, right, next to a Lucio.
Yeah.
Come on, just like that's just one life for bread.
That would be ultimate BM if you lined up for a triple line for Linkster. It's just like,
that's what you do when someone leaves your ranked game, right? You ask if they have any achievements, and then they go like, yes, we want breadsticks, and then you line up, be a homie.
I'm for it. I'm for it.
It would have been so wholesome.
Exactly.
In-game chat, if everyone wrote it.
I mean, it's BM to the Vancouver Titans,
need one
but
more.
it's good for the people of Vancouver.
It's for the people, good for the people of Vancouver. That's our end goal here. I do love that meta breadstick story the Vancouver Titans have going for them. It's a great thing to keep track of. So yeah, keep it up. It remains elusive, but maybe that's what makes it so exciting. I don't know. Let's talk about the second match of the day. That one was fought out between the Toronto Defiant and the Florida Mayhem. And boy, I mean, you guys already, alert to it. Mayhem did look rather shaky. Both teams entered with a 4-4 record, but it was Toronto winning it out on map 5 in the very end. This is actually also their first ever win against the Florida Mayhem as a franchise. So that's a big W.
Yeah, big W for the Toronto Defiant. I mean, let's praise them first. Yeah, let's praise the Toronto Defiant first, because I mean, they played so well. I mean, Aspire on this Tracer had some great moments, even though you're playing against Yaki and it's a rough matchup, etc. Aspire sort of held its own, and then you have Hisu as well on the Sombra. That he came to fame playing the Sombra last year for the Philadelphia Fusion. Playoff bound, did a great improvements in the Countdown Cup as well last year. And this Sombra is something you can really rely on. And as Hisu said in the interview with Danny, he really wanted to play this Sombra. Going into this meta, they wanted to try out this Tracer Sombra composition, and Hisu actively wanted to play this Sombra. And it really works for the Defiant. This is their kind of game, playing the Winston. I feel like this is something they could really rely on in the Summer Showdown. And beating the Florida Mayhem here, that's a great sign for the Toronto Defiant.
Yeah, but for the Florida Mayhem, I love that they actually did put in Checkmate, right? For the longevity of the season, they're going to need Checkmate. He's going to need to come in at certain times so that they can play that double flex DPS or whenever they don't want to play a hit scan for BQB. So in the long run, I like it. Obviously, it didn't work for them today. Checkmate unfortunately didn't end up winning any of the maps that he was in on. But I think that's important moving forward, right? Obviously, they don't get the win here, but they can take that lessons learned. Checkmate gets that rookie debut, sort of dust off of his shoulder, and he can come back even stronger moving forward. But I definitely think the Florida Mayhem are struggling when they're not able to play this Winston Tracer style, when they can't get into that, sort of unique style that they're so good at, and Yaki can take over the game. They just don't look very coordinated. So if they can start honing in on those things, we know they're great players. They are a great team. They just need to start stringing it together. So unfortunate loss for them to the Toronto Defiant. They go 4-5. Place that none of us expected the Florida Mayhem to be in this season. So we'll see where they end up as we go further, because they're slowly starting to fall out of playoff contention. I'm just losing all my headphones slowly.
Okay. It's a struggle for all of us. Yeah. Speaking of struggle, great transition. I want to talk about the first match or series of the day between the London Spitfire and the San Francisco Shock. Now, Spitfire, they were just one round away from actually shocking the world today. Ha 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 ha. Love to use that one.
Only Danny is allowed to make those jokes.
Really? I don't know, man. I'm the host. I can get away with a lot. I mean, okay, so Shock did win, but it was 3-2. And it kind of... I start raising that question, like, when do they have to hit that panic button if you're on the Shock camp?
Well, it's soon, and I think we're already there. I think Bren made a really good tweet today talking about how it's like, hey, there's so much pressure on these rookie players, Glister, FD God, Nero, onto the Shock to try and make this three-peat happen, and I think you do need to give them some slack, and they're definitely not the only problems or issues with this San Francisco Shock team, but also, we're more than halfway through the season. There is no slack. At this point, you need to win every match. You need to start getting those placements and getting those wins on the board because it's all going to matter later down the stretch. San Francisco Shock just edged it out today. You could tell it was more relief than satisfaction when you saw their player cams when they got that win. So Shock have gone to map 5 times so far this season. They need to start getting that dominant performance, consistent performance that we know them for when they won those 2 championships. So I expect better things from them moving forward.
Yeah, I completely agree with Costa here because I feel like the Shock, they're not convincing in any fashion. And at the end of the day, these are just qualification matches, right? This is not even playoffs. These are not knockout matches. They're playing the London Spitfire in the qualification match. So yeah, they got the win. You can celebrate that. Good for the Shock. But at the end, we're expecting some sort of dominance to kick in here. Maybe like the team clicks and something really gets going for this team so they can beat teams in the knockout stages and the playoff matches. Now, it's looking a bit rough for the Shock, but I still like the confidence I heard from Glister, that, Danny, you interviewed Glister earlier. It was a pretty good interview, Danny, because Glister, he talked about, they were a bit lost in the communication, so still some things to figure out about the Shock, but Glister still feels confident, stepping in for the shoes of Striker. He's able to fill that role. I liked what I heard from Glister, to be honest.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, but they do have to start. They need to start now. As you said, we're halfway through the season. Like this, it's high time, honestly, for them to, really get on the same page with each other and bring it home, because you can't be dropping maps to teams like London. Not to, give London any flack. They played better yesterday and today than they have all season long. They are looking like they're on the up. However, still, if you're the San Francisco Shock, you can't be dropping maps to a team so much lower seeded than you, because at the end of the day, it will also come down to map differential, right? If you're entering certain scenarios, and like those are just not the maps you want to lose. Those are not the teams you want to lose maps to, because that can really come back and haunt you. So let's hope that's not the case. Now, speaking of things coming back to haunt you, time to look at our predictions.
I feel pretty good about
right? I mean,
were we all the same?
Yeah, we were, but we were all wrong together, Danny. Yeah.
Solidarity. Yeah.
No, I'll take these. No, I take these. I'm pretty happy with the standing. So
I don't, because this. Yeah, I'm at the bottom now, and I don't like it. I don't know how you did it, Reinforce. How did you do it?
Danny. Yeah, Danny.
Right, Johnny.
For such a long time, I don't understand.
Time per second. Yeah.
All right, I'm gonna come in hot with bold predictions next week. I have to. I either gonna completely drop the ball, or you have to take a risk.
Yeah, you gotta do it.
Otherwise, you gotta do it. Just gotta do it. Now we'll be right back. We're heading into a very quick break, and then afterwards we give you our best moments of the day. We had a jam-packed day of Overwatch, so all of that and more coming up next.
Coca-Cola is the official refreshment of the Overwatch League.